Hey there, it's Madeline. This is my Module 2 discussion board for all of our course content this week. I really loved learning about especially the literature circles this week. That was very interesting to kind of take a deep dive and an in-depth look at what really goes on in a literature circle and how to kind of prepare for them. A lot of this kind of module this week talked about how much preparation matters, especially with literature circles, and kind of reinforcing that student-led learning. A lot of the videos talked about kind of that student-centered learning and how literature circles, for one, let students kind of take ownership of their own learning with their roles within them, which I thought was really interesting because I know students love classroom jobs and they love roles. I think it's really important for kids to feel needed and feel useful. I think the biggest gift a teacher can give to her classroom and to a kid is allowing her students to feel useful. When kids don't feel useful, I think they feel bored. I think they feel disengaged. So I think this idea of a literature circle really gives that useful aspect to a student. I really liked how she said, I think she even said a word wizard. I thought that was so fun, just to find new words and to research new words or new fun words in a story. And she said things like a summarizer or, a researcher, and just kind of rotating those roles throughout the week kind of helps students to kind of develop multiple different skills within the classroom. So I thought that was a really cool idea that she was talking about. And then just once again, I think I wrote down preparation. Yeah, just, making sure you're choosing a good book and then creating those different graphic organizers for your literature circles, and then also kind of using the rubrics she talked about, but then also making sure you're planning to use that different engagement and discussion, and then kind of even working in those questions that Professor you talked about, the different tiers of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4, and kind of how, as we kind of are teachers, we usually in large groups discussions gravitate towards tier 1, which is kind of that simple recall. And while yes, this is easy to kind of get students talking and recalling the story, we also need to be focusing on the rest of the tiers, which like tier 2 is kind of that skill and concept of cause and effect. So we want students to be predicting or summarizing and even comparing characters in a story, to kind of applying those literacy skills that we've been teaching them of all those different aspects within their reading. And then you also talked about level 3 was kind of more of this strategic thinking and kind of applying those higher level thinkings to real life connections. So how are your students connecting the story back to their own life, and how do they see those literacy skills being brought into their own real life examples and not just within maybe a fictional story? So kind of either comparing opinions of characters in a story, or kind of analyzing character traits and being able to pick up on those things, is a really important kind of thought-provoking questions to be asking students to get that higher level of thinking. And then even lastly, level 4, which is extended thinking, and that's kind of your highest level of thinking, and you want kind of those multiple answers, those kind of few sentences in the answer, and kind of being able to critique and also having students question the story. I think when you can ask your own questions and come up with your own questions, that's a great way of knowing that students have gotten the knowledge from whatever story or whatever literacy skill you're wanting them to learn. And kind of just once again that real world application, when they can take a thought or a subject or a theme in a story and apply it to real life, into something that they can connect with, that's when you kind of know they've understood completely and fully what you're trying to get them to understand in whatever skill it is that you are teaching for that day. And just kind of using those different roles, like we talked about, the summarizer, the connector, the word wizard, or whatever it may be, to kind of fully develop those skills, and just once again making a kid feel useful in your classroom. I think that is the biggest thing that I want to learn how to carry in my future classroom is just making sure every kid feels like they have a purpose in my classroom and have a job, and that it's not just me teaching every day, but they are actively learning and actively helping each other. I think that's a really important thing that we as teachers really need to be focusing on, is letting kids feel useful in the classroom.